Welcome back. My next guest is the Reverend Dr. Mark Johnson, and he is not a medical doctor, but he's a doctor of ministry. Welcome.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're the senior pastor at Central Baptist Church.
Yes.
And, I see a lot of people in my office who have just catastrophic, illnesses, just terrible problems. And almost to the person, they never blame God, but they always thank God for helping them get through it.
Right.
How do you think spirituality helps in healing an illness?
Well, I think we can think of prayer as a resource that we can lean upon through all of our life, but certainly when times get tough. By being a praying person, we know that there's a place we can take those burdens. We can rely upon a relationship with God and to be reminded that God still loves us, God still is willing to take care of us, and God is willing to teach us things even through a difficult time. Through a trying situation. In fact, through prayer, we can often learn far more about the deeper ways our whole personhood can be healed because of the difficulty of a very terrible diagnosis or facing a terrible illness.
Now, there's been some studies that really show prayer actually does help. But what do you actually pray for? I hear people say, well, you shouldn't pray to be healed, you shouldn't pray. I pray for all my patients to get better. Is that appropriate?
Absolutely. C.S. Lewis said that we have to pray what's in us, not what ought to be in us. And so often when we think about prayer, we mistakenly believe we have to have the right kind of language or say the right kind of things. But prayer is simply unburdening our heart, our mind, our soul, and allowing God to have all that is within us. And so we do pray for positive outcomes. We pray that we can be healed physically. But we should remember that we are a whole of relational, emotional, mental kinds of parts of our identity that are a part of God's plan for us, a part of God's care for us. So we pray that God would heal us of mind, body, and soul, that God would take this terrible thing and turn it into something that we can learn from, that we can have deepened experiences with our important relationships, that we can come to a deeper sense of peace about our lives and our purpose in the world. Sometimes during a great challenge, that, like an illness, we discover that we were remade in many different ways than merely being physically healed.
Well, when you pray to get better, or your faith is that you're going to get better, but you don't, does that mean you didn't pray hard enough?
Not at all. Not at all. Prayer is not some kind of magical incantation. It's not just saying, I had the right words, therefore I get the right kind of product. Jesus asked that we would pray not our will, but God's will be done. And so we always pray that God knows what is best. My knowledge is limited, and whatever God offers me, I will take with gratitude, and I will seek to learn something from it. So however you prayed, God honors that prayer, God hears that prayer, and God continually cares for you. But to reduce an understanding of prayer to I get what I wanted out of it makes you the object of prayer rather than God.
All right, and a lot of people are sick. You visit a lot of people who are sick. And sometimes I have to break bad news, and sometimes, you just don't know what to say. Is there something good to say when you visit people, or sometimes it's best to say nothing?
It depends on the situation. In the practice of ministry, we have something called the ministry of presence, which means at times what your friend needs most from you is just to sit with them in the uncomfortableness of a bad situation or some bad news. And just to know that you were there is as meaningful as perhaps what you might say. I have said to folks that I am praying for them, that I love them, which is always a good thing to hear. And I think when we try to offer too many other superlatives, then we aren't really acknowledging the grief or the difficulty or the stress that a person may be feeling at that particular moment.
Great comfort.